In episode 8, Captain Ike is back. He rows over to his old ship, hops aboard, and is thrilled to see Maura, but he also has many questions, like how exactly did Daniel get him on the Prometheus? That's when Maura comes clean to everybody about who Daniel is, who the boy is, the simulation, all of it. And it's a lot to take in. Some people don't even believe it. But when Maura asks them all if they remember how they boarded the ship and none of them can, they have to start to believe that maybe Maura is right. Maura tells them, I thought this was just about me, but it's not. It's about all of us. And she pulls out her letter, and then one by one, they all pull out the letter that they got. They all head back inside the ship to see the black jagged things are spreading. All of a sudden, they don't really want to follow Maura until they get some more answers. Like, how the hell does she know nothing when her father owns the shipping company? Maura tells them all that she just remembers waking up to the letter. She's pretty sure her brother sent it to her, and inside was a key. Somehow, her father was able to make her forget what happened before. But she's pretty sure if she's able to find what that key goes to, it'll make her remember. And it'll help them get out of there. Ling steps forward and says, you know what? We never should have gotten on this ship. My mother was right, because everybody that did get on this ship, other than us, is dead. And I'm not about to join them. I'm getting off this ship. Virginia defends Ling, saying she's right. And Maura tries to reinforce that all of it is fake. It's made up. It's a simulation. But they're simply done believing Maura, and they're hell-bent on finding a way off the ship. When push comes to shove, it's the remaining survivors going one way, and Maura and the captain going the exact opposite direction. Maura now just needs to find her father. After all, her father did say, you'll know where to find me. She heads into her bedroom, but the opening to the shaft is no longer there. It just looks like a floor. And when she rips up the floorboard, it's just a ship. She then remembers where there is a shaft, and it's right next door in Daniel's room. So her and the captain go through that. They're inside the pyramid. The captain is taking it all in. Maura reiterates what the boy said about the creator. And if someone created this, there must be like a blueprint. Because inside the brain, memories are stored separately, but they're all connected. So she starts to wonder, maybe that's what all of this is. Separate memories, but you can get from one to the other. She walks over to one of the walls, rips off the board, and it exposes all of the wires that Daniel had crawled through. But it also exposes a flashlight, so they have that going for them. They then hop inside the wall and they follow Daniel's path, going from one memory to the next. One by one, trying to get back to the mental hospital to see her father. At one point, the captain does ask, is your husband working for your father? And Maura says, no, I think he's actually trying to help. And she's right. When Daniel gave her the wedding ring and he took off, he went down to that machine that was supposed to use steam, but now we know that that was just a facade. He hooks up to his device to it, and he starts trying to reprogram the simulation. It takes a little bit, but it does work. This is bad news for the remaining survivors. They weren't able to find a way off the ship, and it just really, really puts them in a hellscape. But reprogramming the simulation was all that Daniel could think about. Normally, Henry would be watching all of this, and he'd be able to stop it, but he wasn't. He decided to take the boy and show him his side of things. Henry knows that Daniel and Maura have told Elliot one thing, but he wants to open his eyes a little bit, show him the, quote, truth. They walk outside, they're staring at the pyramid, and Henry tells Elliot, it's time for you to remember. With a few thumb moves on his device, all of a sudden the landscape changes from the pyramid landscape to the mental hospital landscape. They walk inside the room that Daniel was trapped in and was able to get out of. But there's no sign that Daniel was ever even there. Henry has the boy sit down. He goes over to a table, grabs a needle, and tells him, this is going to hurt a little bit, but I'm going to show you the truth. He injects him with this white liquid, and all of a sudden, Elliot is back in one of his memories. Although, he's back in that chair. Instead of Henry being in the room, though, it's Maura and Daniel. Daniel is pleading with Maura to stop, saying, you know this isn't right, but Maura continues to do whatever it is she is doing. Just like Henry, Maura walks over to Elliot holding a syringe, but Daniel pleads her to just let him go, but she doesn't. Elliot is terrified. He's screaming for his mother to stop, but she doesn't. She tells him, don't be afraid. You'll forget, I promise. You'll forget all this ever happened. It's the only way for us to be together. She then injects him with whatever it is she put in that syringe, and Elliot wakes back up inside the room with Henry. Right away, he says, no, that was a false memory. But Henry says, no. You saw the truth, didn't you? You're trapped in this simulation so your mother can keep you alive. Henry goes on to tell Elliot that around when Maura was his age, she found a letter on Plato's cave allegory. If you're unaware of what Plato's cave allegory is, imagine a cave in which there are 3 prisoners, and the prisoners are tied up to rocks where the only thing they can look at is the stone in front of them. These prisoners have been there since birth. They've never been outside the cave, but right behind the prisoners is a fire, and between them is a raised walkway. People outside the cave walk along the walkway, carrying things on their head like animals, plants, wood, stone, all that stuff you'd need. So imagine you're one of the prisoners. You can't look at anything behind you. You can only look at the wall in front of you. So when people walk along the walkway, you can see the shadows of the objects that they are carrying on the wall. If you had never seen the objects before, you would believe that the shadows of the objects were real. So Plato suggests that the prisoners would begin a guessing game of which shadow would appear next. If one of the prisoners were to guess right, the other prisoners would praise him as clever and genius. Eventually, though, one of the prisoners gets just sick of staring at a wall and escapes, and he is shocked at the world that he discovers on the outside of the cave. As he becomes used to the surroundings, he realizes that his former view of reality was completely wrong, and he starts to understand his new world. He sees that his former life and the guessing game was just useless. The prisoner returns to the cave. He informs the rest of them of his findings, but they don't believe him. And they actually threaten to kill him if he tries to set them free. It's pretty deep stuff for probably an 8-year-old to understand, but Maura did. Not only did she understand it, she became obsessed with it. She read it over and over and over again. Because of this, Maura became fixated on who created her, then who created them, then who created God, who created the creator, all of it, the bigger picture. Elliot looks at Henry and says, "You're lying," but Henry shoots back, "That's what your dad wants you to believe." But he's been lying to you. They both have. But there is a way out of here, and your mother has the key. They then return back to Henry's office, only to see Sebastian staring at the TV screens, knowing what's going on, but unable to do anything about it. As soon as Henry walks to the door, Sebastian tells Henry that Daniel hacked into the mainframe in an attempt to change the simulation. Henry starts getting worried that Daniel is trying to wake Maura up without handing over the key. So they need to find Maura ASAP. As Henry and Elliot watch the simulation destroy itself, Henry turns to Elliot and says, "You think your father cares about you, but he's not doing this for you. He's doing it for her. If he had to choose between you and your mother, he would choose her every time." Henry then sees on one of the monitors that Sebastian has reached both Maura and the captain. Maura does hand over the key, but using his device, Sebastian is able to immobilize the captain, knocking him out completely. Sebastian then brings Maura into the office, and right away Henry tells her, "Elliot knows what you did to him." The thing is, Maura doesn't remember what she did to him. Maura then notices the television screens, and she says, "Oh my God, you've been watching this the entire time. That's why Kieran sent the letter. He found out what you were doing. Where is my brother?" But Henry tells her, "Believe me, he's the last one you should be concerned about." He then moves one item on his device. 2 guys dressed as orderlies grab her, and suddenly they're back in the mental hospital. They strap Maura to the chair. She can't move. Henry starts giving her a speech about how we're born in this world either a seeker or a voider, and she was born a seeker. As he goes on and on about putting most of the blame on Maura, she cuts him off, and he yells, "Stop. This is one of your sick mind games." But Henry chuckles, saying, "You're giving me a lot more credit than I deserve. This isn't my sick mind game. This is yours. That's because you are the creator. Actually, you and your husband created all of it. It's your design. We're all just trapped here. So I'm going to leave now, but for you, it's time to forget again." He then signals to Eli to grab a syringe, and normally she would forget all of it. The loop would start back up. But this time, that's not what happens. She doesn't wake up on a ship. That's because the ship was completely destroyed by whatever Daniel did. No, this time she wakes up right outside of the mental hospital, aware of everything that happened. Henry's little plan didn't work. He headed back to his office, and using the key, he did turn it, but nothing happened. He didn't wake up, and that's because of what Daniel did. Maura ends up meeting up with Daniel in Elliot's hideout, and he explains to her that he reprogrammed the simulation, so what Henry had was useless. He moved the lock and the key. He hands her another pyramid, although it looks like a Rubik's Cube, and he tells her that the key is actually her wedding ring. This will help her wake up. She does, though, have some questions about the whole her being a creator thing, and Daniel does let her know that they did, in fact, create all of this. This was their first simulation, home away from home. But while she was in here, it was all taken over by her brother. That's why she needs to get out. She looks at him completely shocked and says, I thought my father was controlling everything. But Daniel shakes his head and says, no, he's just stuck in here as everyone else is. I don't know how fast your brother's going to figure out what I've done, but you have to leave now. This is so much bigger than you think. You have to wake up or everything will be lost. He then says goodbye to his wife. She puts the ring in the pyramid, and she does wake up. Like last time, she is on a ship, but this time, it's not a boat. It's a spaceship. It's called the Prometheus, and she was asleep the entire time. When she looks around, she sees a lot of familiar faces. They also were in the simulation. She's pretty surprised by all of this, and then she notices that there's a note on a computer screen. It says, may your coffee kick in before reality does. Then the computer screen comes to life, and it reads, Project Prometheus, Survival Mission 2, and then there's coordinates. There's 1,423 passengers on board, 550 are crew, but the most shocking thing is the date, October 19th, 2099. Then there's a message from Kieran, her brother. It says, hello, sister. Welcome to reality. And that is how Season 1 of 1899 ends. Thank you so much for getting this part of the recap. I really appreciate it. Consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. I have merch. I have memberships, Patreons. There's a lot of ways to give me money, and that'd be cool. But if you don't, I get it. Hard times for everybody. Let me know what you thought of this show. I've gotten a lot of different opinions from different people about what they thought about it, good and bad. Lastly, be nice in the comment section. Nasty comments make me feel bad. That's usually why I don't get back to people. But I do appreciate everybody checking this.